Have you ever wondered why some people suffer with disease, death and misery? I have seen children born with terminal diseases, young people taken in tragic accidents, natural disasters bringing death and destruction, and innocent people serving decades in prison. Job was beset by many terrible circumstances. He was allowed to suffer greatly, more than most folks would be able to endure. Let us take a closer look at the lessons to be learned from the trials and tribulations of Job. Job is an illustrious example of a man suffering innocently, yet resolutely refusing to utter a single word contrary to his conscience. God himself testified that Job is an upright man who fears God and eschews evil. Satan is thus defeated and shown to be a lying slanderer after asserting that, if only sufficiently afflicted, Job would renounce God and would curse God to his face. Job thus eminently belongs to the noble army of martyrs. Job withstood the false accusations of his friends and suffered the severities of his distressing condition. He would not speak or act contrary to the dictates of his conscience or deny what he knew to be true. There are many important lessons in the book of Job. We will examine 3 for the purposes of this message. Number 1 is that a godly man will not renounce Christ Jesus because of threatened or endured sufferings. Though extreme torture may force out a recantation, it will be withdrawn when the torture is ended. Archbishop Cranmer, during the reign of Bloody Mary, Catholic Queen of England, is an example. He was tortured until he recanted Protestantism. When brought before the court, he withdrew his torture-induced confession of heresy. When burned at the stake, he held out his right hand over the closest flames and said, "That unworthy hand," that signed the recantation, and exclaimed, "Torture me if you will, but whatever the weakness of my nature may force me in my suffering to confess contrary to the truth of Christ, I will recall as soon as the torture is withdrawn." In Daniel chapter 3 we see steadfastness in the 3 Hebrew children who refused to disobey their God. They said, "Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." Lesson number 2 is wait for God to work on your behalf. Job spelled out his righteous deeds to his friends. He did not falsely accuse God, nor did he deny his faith in God. My wife was recently in disagreement with someone over payment for services she had rendered. She pointed out the discrepancy to the other party and was rebuffed. Her first inclination was to demand the difference, but she heard the still small voice of the Lord say, "Let me handle it." My wife is a sweet thing and wants to please the Lord in all matters, but she soon heard another voice say, "Text your demands and insist on payment." The second voice was not the voice of God. She listened to the first voice and soon received payment in full without striving or forcing the issue, and avoided hurt feelings. My favourite psalm is number 37 because it tells us to let God work for us. "Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil. Commit thy way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgment as the noonday." Lesson number 3 has 2 parts. The first is to declare the righteousness of God. Secondarily, to assert the sincerity and righteousness of your character. The Apostle Paul stood before the Sanhedrin saying, "Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day." Our own uprightness is due to God's righteousness and his atoning work on the cross. God's righteousness shows divine grace and the work of God's Spirit in our hearts. His righteousness is the evidence of our reconciliation and sonship to God. There is a twofold righteousness belonging to the believer, an imputed and an inherent or personal one. Our imputed righteousness is given to us by God. This is the atoning work of grace by Jesus. We cannot earn enough brownie points to buy a place in heaven. Our righteousness is filthy rags for the purpose of salvation, but it is a good example to those around us. We must rely on the imputed righteousness of God to save us. Our inherent righteousness is seen by men. Our actions are the epistles of Christ read by men. All our righteousness is carefully examined by family, friends, co-workers and enemies. Our actions are induced by the choices we make. Choices guide us in our desire to please God and maintain our integrity before men. We can destroy our witness before men. Everyone knows examples of those who have fallen from grace. We can look in the mirror and find someone who falls short of the example set by Christ Jesus. Even though we fall short, we are required to live a life pleasing to God. This right way of living to please God causes the righteousness we display before men. We depend on divine grace to help us maintain our righteousness. Be holy as I am, holy is our commandment from God. There is coming a day when believers must choose between Jesus and the Antichrist. There will not be any way to scrub off the mark of the beast. You will not get a second chance. We must learn to follow the voice of Christ, so we will know to reject the second voice we hear. The Apostle John said, "If our hearts condemn us not, then have we confidence toward God." We must hold fast to God and live a life of integrity. The Lord gives us all things needed for life and godliness. If we hear his voice, he will guide our steps, be an ever-present help in time of trouble, and he will deliver us from all our enemies. His burden is light, and his yoke is easy. Walk in the light you have been given till you enter the portals of glory and see the one who set you free. Please like and subscribe. This helps us spread the gospel. Listen for the still small voice of God and follow his instructions.